Okay, hello everyone. So this is our pattern. We'll be doing the cutting and sewing technique. So I've already transferred what we have on the board here, and I've marked out the shape. So for bustier, you also need a wording so that it can, to create the cup, either use a wording or a breast cup. So if you're using a wording, I'll be showing you how to use a wording. So for this now, if I'm cutting, don't forget this is like one piece unfold, adding my allowance on the side. Then on this other side, I'm going to cut out 2 pieces of this. Then I'll have 2 pieces and 2 pieces. So I'm cutting, this is center front, the side center front or center front too. I'm cutting around like this. But I need to mark out the wording part if I'm going to do attach wording. Because if I cut out, you might miss out the point where I'll be attaching wording to it. From attaching wording, the wording stops on the length to under bust and is going to be 0.5 cm below the top bust. Same thing for the center front. So this is the length to under bust. So what I'm going to do, before I pieces of my pattern, I'm going to cut out first all this piece, all the marked parts. This is it, already cut out. Now I have my CF1, CF2, CB1 and 2. So the next thing I need to do is cut it on fabric, the unfold, add my seam allowance and all that. So I need to cut on fabric next. Okay, now I've cut out the fabric, adding all the necessary allowance. This is the CF1 and 2, where we have 0.5, 1 inch on the sides, and then I have the CB1 and 2. So I'll bring the CF forward. Now, for me to mark where my wording will be, remember what I said, wording is 0.5 below at the top. Then you make sure the curve sits on the length to under bust, because the whole idea is for the wording to be able to push up your boobs. So you connect from here. So make sure you don't get to the end. So you can, let me just say, you can measure like 2 inches in from the side or 2.5, and then you connect on your pattern. So this is it. You follow your curve down. So when you're bringing your curve down, make sure it sits on the length to under bust. This is it. It needs to sit perfectly. It needs to relax on the length to under bust before you connect. Now if I'm for the center front, all I need to do is drop down 0.5 and reconnect it this way to the front. And then this is the length to under bust. So I'll be cutting this part out for my wording so that it will be easier. So when I'm cutting my wording now, I'll add 0.5 and 0.5. Here it's still unfold. It still sits as unfold. Then there will be no allowance round here and up. Neither would there be allowance on the length to under bust. So that's what I'll be doing next. Now this is it cut out. I've cut it out already, away from the pattern. So you see why you have to write out all the necessary allowance. Now I've cut it out. I'll also take out this 0.5 cm inches that I'm using. So I'll just use this and cut directly on the wording. So for my fabric, see my center front, I did 2 pieces because I'm using the same fabric as my lining. Next I'll be cutting this on my wording. So you bring your wording. If you check the wording, so it's always best to use the medium one. There are some that are very stiff, there are some that is very light. Like this one is light. So it depends on how you want it. So it's always best to use the medium one. This one is, though is a light, but I'll just use it for the sake of our class. So I'll still place it on fold. The center front is still on fold. I'll place it on fold and pin it before cutting out. And then also place the other side. For the side, I'll be cutting 2 pieces, while the front is going to be 1 piece on fold. So this is my center front. Now I'm cutting out. The only part I'm adding 0.5 is the side where we wrote 0.5. So the reason why we don't allow the wording to get to the top, especially if you're using like a thicker wording, is so by the time you are turning the top part, your seam allowance, like you're leaving that 0.5 for seam allowance at the top. So by the time you are turning with your lining, the up part will not budge. It will not be too bulky. So that's why the wording has to go down by 0.5. Now I have my wadding ready. So now we'll be moving to the sewing machine for us to join our pieces and our wadding. Don't forget the wadding has a shiny part. So this is our center front, 1 and 2. We'll start with this. So I'll just keep my wadding aside and then remove the pins. Remember what I said, I'm using the same fabric for this thing and lining. I'm using the fabric to serve as my lining. So I'll just, because it's calico, we won't be able to detect the front and back of our fabric. So I'll just use my marker to mark faintly on the back. So I have 4 pieces of this because I'm using it as my lining. Otherwise, you ought to have cut a lining. So this is my CF1. I'll bring it. So now this serves as the main fabric, not the lining. So attaching your wadding, you have to top stitch it first. There is glue on it. The shiny part has glue, your wadding. So now you bring the main fabric and place it on the shiny part. You can also use your pressing iron. See, I'm leaving the space 0.5 inch for it. So you have to place it together like this. Turn. Use your pressing iron on it, especially a steam iron works better. Use your pressing iron, and you can also top stitch to hold it in place. If I'm top stitching now, just go by the side it and run through it so that it holds the wadding in place. So I always advise to use your pressing iron so that you can hold it in place. So you can top stitch both sides just to hold it together. So, but for me, I don't need to top stitch. Even for the center front, now I'm keeping this as the lining aside. I'm working with what I have here. So I have 1 on this side and 1 on the other side. This is what makes it up. So I'll bring my wadding because I don't want to mix up. You know, the down part is different from the top part. So you always need to be careful so that you don't turn it like this. Otherwise, it won't sit right. So don't forget, that's why I have all these markings. I have my true bust and I have my underbust. I'm still seeing my length to underbust line here. So I'll just remove my, carefully note that this one would go this way and this one will go this way. So you have to be careful when you're doing this part so you don't mess it up. So I'll just make sure my wadding comes down a bit, 0.5, before I top stitch. Same thing for this, place it on the wrong side of your fabric. We've already used marker to mark the wrong side of our fabric. And then make sure it comes down by 0.5. You can iron or top stitch. So let's say I have this already. Now I'm going to join the seams together. Remember our seam allowance is 0.5, so that's what I'll be using to join the seams together. Now I'll bring this and place it on it. So whenever you are doing this, I always prefer to sew from the down parts. Sew from the bottom part is safer, so that you can see and align everything perfectly. You sew from the down parts. Don't forget 0.5. I forgot to say something. So when you are sewing your bustier, it's best to add stay to the main fabric before you even attach your wadding. It gives it more structure, and it will be able to contour properly around your boobs area. So imagine if I had added stay to this before I started sewing. So don't forget, you still sew on your same line. So we can be having our discussion. So you follow the curves like that, and then you sew. Get that out. Next, I have the center front. Now join the other side of the center front. Don't forget to use your pressing iron or your top stitch. Well, for me, I can be able to move around, maneuver my way. So I still have to lay this properly because I didn't top stitch. So the reason why I need to top stitch because it will start moving, but I can always rearrange mine. top, make sure you use your pressing iron on it. And then you follow the curves of your line. You have to follow your curves always. Alright, so this is it. Done sewing. So you bring it out. So it gives it more structure. Imagine if it's firmer, if the wording was firmer now. It would come out like this. So next thing you need to do now is sew your other panel lines and also sew your lining. So that I can show you how to, before we couple it. So I'll be sewing all the other panel line. Like the lining now, I'll join it now. This one doesn't have wording for it. So I'll join it directly and also join all the panels of the center back. This is my center back. I'll also join the panels and bring it. So this is the back part. So we'll be joining the panel lines for the back. Just, this is CB1, CB2. I'll bring it together, I'll pin. So what you can do, for you not to miss it, you can notch the top part. This is CB1, CB2 again. Now I'll pin it to the other side. You know the first one was facing up. Now this one needs to face back. And then I also have my lining for it. This is the lining. Remember I said if I'm using this fabric as fabric and lining. So I'll mark. This is my CB1, CB2. I'll get it like this. Okay, this is the first one. Now let's use this one as lining and then I'll start back. This is the two piece I have for the main fabric. You take one piece of CB1 and another piece of CB2. Place them together like this and pin. So the part I pinned is where we'll be sewing 0.5 seam allowance for your panel lines. Now, turn this to the back, place them together, and pin. So this is where we'll be sewing 0.5. So I'll be sewing 0.5 downward on all the panel lines. Same thing for the lining. Whatever you are sewing for this, you have to sew same measurement. Don't forget to follow your curve because remember we had the dart shape. So as you are sewing, make sure you follow the same shape. So I'll be sewing all panel lines. Now I'm done sewing the panel lines. What you need to do next is go to your ironing table. You have to open press all panel lines. Same thing for even your center front. You open press all panel lines. So the fact that we've notched the top, remember I told you to notch for you to indicate. Now see it's showing. I can detect the up part from the down part. So now this is one piece, this is the notch part, and this is the curved part. This is the straight part that has the zip allowance. Now this side will be joining, I'll be joining this to the other side. So it's going to be sideways. Now bring the other one and then you pin them. So you join the sides. Don't forget side seam, still have my notch mark here to help me out. So don't forget the side seam allowance is 1 inch. So that's what I'll be joining the sides by, 1 inch. Now I've joined the sides. So all you need to do now is attach your zipper. Your zipper comes in first. So you use like your open and close. You attach it the invisible way. Attach one here, attach one the other way. Then you bring the lining. The lining, you're going to join the sides too, same way. You bring the lining. This is the good side of the line. This is the good side of your fabric. You place them good side to good side together. So let's assume I've added my zipper. You place them good side to good side together. Now we are going to sew and turn the lining. If you have your zipper in there, you make sure you place them together. Don't forget to open press and then you can pin. You open your seams when you're sewing and then you pin up. You can pin up before sewing. Now I'm done pinning the lining to the main fabric. The fabric is the part that has the wording. So after pinning, don't forget, next you just sew 0.5 all the way at the top. Don't forget we already have our zipper in there. So sew 0.5 at the top. So now following, don't forget our wording, make sure it's not coming out. So now you follow and then you sew your sweetheart shape. When you are getting here, sewing this one, you have to be careful and do it slowly. So you make sure your needle is inside at that shape, turn to continue following the curve. And then you go all the way. So when you get to this other part of the back, you lock. Now I have it sewn. If you attach your zip, all you need to do is trace on that zip pattern, sew straight down. Just so it's going to be now sewing the back side. Don't forget you already have your zipper, so you just need to trace the zipper part and follow the shape. Same thing for the other side. So we're going to be turning it fully, English finishing. So if you just trace your zipper part. Don't forget you ought to have attached your zipper by this time on the main fabric. Now you're using your lining to turn it. And then you sew. Once you get to the end, now we are sewing the down part. Now we are turning fully. Same 0.5. So what you do when you are getting to the end, now this is where we'll turn. You have to leave an opening. This is, I've sewn to this edge. You have to leave an opening like 5 to 6 inches. So this is where I'll be turning from. You can trim off, notch, all this part you can notch it so that the cup would sit perfectly. You can notch and then you turn the fabric inside out from that opening that we created. Before you even do that, you can notch all these sharp edges out. And also the neckline, you need to notch your neckline. Notch round before you turn inside out. Trim off where necessary and turn. So you turn fully. You take it to the ironing board and press perfectly. To bring out all the curve, all the edges. So this is just where we turn from. All you need to do is fold this inside. When you iron, you attach your hemming gum. Now you ought to have had your zippers here and then you will close. So I'll iron and then show you the finished product. It's neatly ironed out. It needs to sit on you perfectly like this, so you need to iron it to bring out all the right measurements, and it needs to be fully turned. Thank you.